Craig, I want to throw the house on United to win the league. We're going to win absolutely everything. We're going to win every game 4-0. We're going to win the league. We'll probably top Europe, and I'm sure we'll probably win the World Cup too. Who should I bet with?
I mean, if you're thinking we're going to win the World Cup, well, it's got to be mybookie.ag. All your nailed-on winners will be in your bank within 2 business days. For all new sign-ups, they'll give you up to a 100% free bonus. If you deposit $1,000, they'll match it.
Sounds good. So, mybookie.ag?
Yeah, that's right. And don't forget to use promo code United100.
Yeah! The shout now. Well done, Bobby Johnson. Well done, Manchester United. It's a Sheringham, and Solskjaer has won it! Radisson saved it! United again! Ready! A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie!
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things United. I'm your host, Nick.
I'm Colin.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Ed.
Yeah, we've got 4 of us this week, so we've got that many games to go through that none of us can even remember half of them. Last time we recorded was after City. It's actually been a ridiculous 7 matches since then, and there's no way we're going to be covering all of these. But yeah, to say it's not been a great period is probably a bit of an understatement.
Much like the team, I think we've just given up since getting beat by City. Thrown in the league, may as well just throw in the podcast as well.
Well, I don't think any of you 3 were on that post-City one, and we weren't that depressed at that point. We said, look, all right, we lost to City. They're damn good at the moment. But yeah, at least we're clear in second. But now, yeah, we fucked that up as well. And allow us back in the race for top 4, really. Colin, what's your kind of... what's happened here in the last few weeks, eh?
I don't know. For a while, I thought it was maybe just a bit of a hangover from the City game. Obviously, I think we followed that with 2 wins, although it wasn't great by
Scrappy
any means.
wins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's true. We did get 1-0 against Bournemouth, 2-1 against West Brom.
West Brom, but
we were kind of holding on just for both of those.
But I think the signs were there, and I think they have been there for a little while now. We obviously went through a tricky period without Pogba, but it's starting to look actually quite good in comparison, because the wheels have just well and truly come off. I think we look extremely tired, both physically and mentally, in terms of ideas and sort of people wanting to try things and create. And I think that is the big issue I'm seeing, certainly, is just that we're just not playing good football. We're not creating chances, certainly clear-cut chances. Most of our attackers are kind of in and out of form, and some people have really, really dipped, as well as a few injuries. But the motivation seems poor. The general feeling around the club, a lot of that, I think, coming from Mourinho, feels quite dejected. City probably have won the league, but this team has finished 4th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 4th, whatever, 6th, in the last few years. So second's no disgrace, particularly to such a good City side, and there's still quite a long way to go.
Really, isn't it?
Well, it really is, but it doesn't look like it at the moment. It certainly doesn't feel like it. It feels like the same blip we've had every year since Fergie left. It has come at some stage, sometimes November, sometimes right through the Christmas period, where we just go 4 or 5 games, either win or drawn. And obviously this time it's been draws, but they all should have been wins. They've all been games we've largely dominated. We've restricted the chances they've had, and they've just scored random fluky goals and things like that. But we've just been so turgid, I think, in attack and in general effort. I swear we run the least out of any team in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully it's not all doom and gloom, because we have finished off this run. Of course, we're recording this 24 hours after beating Everton 2-0. That at least does put us in second until Chelsea play tomorrow. It's slightly put a silver lining on that cloud. It was actually, I thought, a much improved performance yesterday. Ed, what did you think was the difference against Everton compared to those 3 draws we had in a row?
I'm not really sure. Pogba certainly stepped it up, I think, in the second half. I think Martial was... I don't know. He certainly. Everyone tried more in the second half, but I don't know what was different in any other way, really.
I think for me, the main difference is that I guess we've gone Matic and Herrera and giving Pogba a much freer attacking role in this game. And yeah, this kind of comments, Paul Scholes has been getting a bit of a slagging off from Mourinho yesterday after he was talking about Pogba being played out of position and that he really wanted to see him played further forward. And yeah, that's what happened in this match. And he seems a lot more comfortable in that position. I even saw an interview with Pogba. It was actually on American TV straight after the game. And they asked him, where do you like playing? And he said, look, I do want to play further forward, much closer to the strikers. I'll do whatever job I'm told to do, but that's where I feel most comfortable. And yeah, that for me was the big difference between when it's Pogba and Matic just sat more in a two-man midfield. That, yeah, when Herrera comes in, even though Herrera's not been in the best of form, Pogba has so much more freedom. And yeah, you see the difference he can make when he has that freedom.
Yeah, I don't know that the performance was that much better. I think the first half we were pretty flat and lacking in ideas. And actually, I think in the second half we were a little better. There seemed to be a little bit more link-up play further up the field. We got behind a few more times, but I wouldn't say that we were cutting them open or creating clear-cut chances. It still relied on two very good goals in terms of great finishing, but still outside of the box, individual brilliance goals rather than cohesion up top. So I don't even know that the performance was necessarily that much better. Even in the draw with Burnley and Leicester, I think that we showed probably just as much, if not more, in terms of attacking intent.
I would disagree only in respect of, I think, two things. I agree, Alex, the first half I thought was turgid. I thought it was as bad as we've been across the entire Christmas period because I don't think Everton actually offered that much. Certainly not as much as other teams possibly that we've played during this spell, but the first half was about as bad. It was just really a continuation of what I've seen over this gloomy Christmas period, which was just lackluster, no energy football. But I do think the second half against Everton was a marked improvement. Really, I thought it was quite clear that we were starting to pass the ball with a lot
compared
more.
to Southampton. But was it a better performance than the 2-2 against Leicester or Burnley, particularly?
We didn't actually play that badly against Leicester and Burnley.
Well, that's what I was about to say. The Leicester game could have finished 4-1,
Exactly, yeah, it could. And that's kind of my point. I don't necessarily think that there was a particular improvement in performance and that this release of Pogba, it might have been the key to a better performance in that game. But, we've seen some good performances from Pogba in a 2 earlier in the season. And I think it's very reductive of people to think that makes such a difference and that switching systems would result in a transformation. I'm not at all saying that you guys think that.
To be totally blunt, he got 2 assists, so it obviously made a difference. Not just that, he created every opportunity. He was going down the left and putting in crosses for two cutbacks that should have been 2 goals. So he could have had 2 more assists. So I think
we've seen those performances. We've seen those performances from him this season multiple times. That's not something that has been isolated for this one formation or one system.
Well, we hadn't seen it for nearly a month or so, though, really. I mean, the last time he had a real standout was against Arsenal, and it's about nearly a month back now.
And at the start of the season, there was quite a few performances, West Ham and Swansea and whatnot, where he was making the difference and getting the assists. And I would actually argue that the assists and the creativity showed in those games was probably as much, if not more. In this game there was some really good 1-2s on the edge of the box and some good dribbles, but the 2 assists themselves weren't particularly influential assists. It was a case of passing it to someone on the edge of the box. He's created space, admittedly, but it still relied on them being the ones who did the work. And I'm not trying to take anything away from what was a very good performance. I'm just saying that Pogba is a fantastic player, capable of those performances, and he might prefer to be in a free, and I think that's something that we've wanted to see him in. But by the same token, I think our problems are much, much deeper than that.
Yeah, you say he's capable, but he didn't do it against Southampton. He didn't do it against Burnley. He didn't do it against Leicester. Even though we did play all right in general, he hadn't been particularly good.
Or Bristol.
Give it another month and there'll be multiple examples of him being in a free and not necessarily doing it. We've seen him in a free before, even this season, and it didn't work in those games. Earlier in the season, we played a free multiple times. I can't remember the game, but the post podcast was talking about how a free didn't really work for us because they're too similar. We're not freeing up Pogba. He's not necessarily got the license to spray balls left and right.
I think a big part of the three not working was how bad Herrera's been, because the three only works if you have three good players to put there. Fellaini's been out injured. When he's been there, it actually has been very effective. He's normally, early in the season when Pogba was playing so well, it was Fellaini coming off the bench, allowing Pogba to go forward more and playing the three as well, Alex. A lot of those performances, Swansea, West Ham, you cite, a lot of his good play actually came in the latter stages of the game when Fellaini came on and took his position in the middle, which actually makes it what we're seeing now. Now, I agree with you. It's not as simple to say, oh, sure, throw Pogba in at number 10 and we'll start smashing everyone again. It's not that simple. Rashford's out of form, Martial's inconsistent, Lingard's amazing, Lukaku's a big issue at the moment, which is a shame to see, and there's just not a lot of creativity. But I think a lot of it stems from Matic not having that partner without Pogba, and the partner not playing well when Pogba is pushed further on. I thought against Everton, Herrera was actually quite good. I thought he was busy. He worked quite hard. Still a bit too much sideways and backwards, but he was pinging a lot of balls forward and just pinging them into people, and then saying, sure, we'll see what happens. And to me, it was a much more positive performance from him than we've seen all year, because he's been absolutely diabolical. And I think that's a big part of it, in that if Matic and Herrera are playing to the best of their capabilities and Pogba is pushed up the pitch, then that is definitely going to be better for us. I don't see a way that a United fan couldn't see how the Herrera of last year, paired with Matic with Pogba ahead, wouldn't be our best midfield, because I think it's quite clear that it would be. The problem is that Herrera for the entire season has been out of form and not picked. So Herrera having a good game, I think, made a big difference to Pogba. I agree, you're going to get average games from him, but equally, someone made a very good point in Football Forums yesterday, that nowadays fans expect players to be, world class every single minute of every single game, and City's certainly helping us in that expectation. But Zidane didn't do it every single match. Players just don't. One player will never win you a match, and that's why it's so much more important to have the system and to have control and to have everyone pulling the same way, which I think is our big issue at the moment.
But that's exactly my point, actually. I completely agree that it's a new phenomenon. I think Messi and Ronaldo are the ones who've brought this around, and particularly seeing players from foreign leagues who you're not watching every game come up with ridiculous productive numbers, where we're expecting players to perform week in, week out, and it's not something that you would ever expect to happen, because there's so many variables: what the other team's doing, what the tactics are, how the other players are performing. Because ultimately, even if Pogba's doing what he needs to be doing, if other players aren't reacting well to that and doing what they need to be doing, then he can't necessarily influence it all. I completely agree, but that's my issue, is that we might see better performances from him, we also won't. But ultimately, there's still going to be a reliance on individual brilliance from him, Lingard, and others. I think even earlier in the season, when we were getting some very good results, we were probably very solid at the back, very functional. We were tiring teams out, and we were taking advantage on the end. But even so, I think that even in those games, if you remember, we were coming from those games saying, yeah, it was a good performance, but it wasn't a typical 4-0. I think sometimes we didn't get the credit we deserve, but by the same token, there wasn't a great deal of flair, there wasn't a great deal of cohesion. And as far as I'm concerned, even in those games, we weren't necessarily linking up play brilliantly, creating clear-cut chances brilliantly. I still think that that's going to be the same. And even if we enable Pogba to be more productive, because he is a fantastic player, there's much more that needs to be done past that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's much more to be done. And the biggest problem in this period has been that how much the formation, not just the formation, but the personnel keeps changing. That we've not yet found like the real first 11. Even obviously in Christmas there's going to be rotation, but every match there seemed to be quite a different starting point. I mean, the first, if we go back to something like Burnley, and it's the first time we get Zlatan and Lukaku starting together. Then we had.
Who would have thought that wouldn't work?
Well, I mean, I think it's harsh to write it off straight away. First time they played together, Zlatan's obviously not 100%. If two of them are...
I don't think he's at 50%.
No. Yeah, well, that's it. If two of them are firing on all cylinders, I still think it could be an interesting way, with him being the more creative player sat in behind Lukaku. I would like to see it.
Burnley a very, very good team to trial that experiment, though. A team who, where are they in the league? I know that they were very close to fourth place not long ago, but they've also had some big away scalps this season, the like of Chelsea. I think it was the opening weekend or the second weekend in the league. They're a very good team to be trialing that. It didn't pay off, and ultimately we ended up chasing the game and not getting the result we wanted because of that.
Yeah, I mean, that Burnley game out of this run, it was actually the only one that I actually managed to go to myself. And it's a weird one, like, obviously we weren't happy with the result, but actually in the stadium we were actually celebrating at the end because you've gone 2-0 down and you come back to 2-2 and get a last minute equaliser. So you actually go home kind of relatively upbeat until you kind of realise that you've just drawn with Burnley.
I think if you win the games either side of that, that's a great result.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do about those 2 goals. The first one is fluky from a scramble. It's poorly defended in the box. For me, it's Lukaku again, even if that's slightly harsh. But it's a scramble, and then they poke it in, and it's it is what it is. There's nothing you can really do. It's poor. The second goal, the free kick, there's absolutely nothing anyone can do about that. And yet we got a reaction. We got a bit better football that we were forced into because we actually had to go and take risks. Lingard played fantastically and actually probably should have had a hat-trick, but it hit the keeper's face, which again is just bad luck. Like, I don't think he does anything wrong with that finish. Of course he can smash it in, but it's harsh, and he scored 2 lovely goals and was our saviour, as he has been for a lot of this Christmas period. And I think if you get the wins either side, then that Burnley, that reaction looks like a good reaction to get it back from 2-2. I thought we could have won it 3-2, but we're not playing the kind of attacking football that would make me think we're ever going to score 2 or 3 goals in a game, over this Christmas period, which has been poor. Just a few of the things Alex said I want to touch on. I guess, Alex, the point you're making is that Mourinho can't coach an attacking team and that we just rely on bits of individual brilliance and that we never actually have a cohesive way of playing and a style that we go out and do, or, players set in certain positions where they actually know how we want to play and how we want to score goals. And that's the big issue then.
I'm not saying so much that he can't. I'm just saying that I don't believe that we have evidenced that and seen that in action at United. I think I've always said before that even though his teams aren't always the most exciting to watch, they've typically scored a lot of goals, and whilst we have done that and put teams to the sword this season, there have also been quite a lot of games now. It is really adding up that we've really struggled to break opposition down.
I'm not sure I agree with that though, because even against Everton, there were times where we were getting through. Like, there was a ball fizzed across the box that Pogba just missed, and there was a few occasions where that happened. I do think we get in behind teams quite often. We're still lacking.
So did Moyes United, to be very reductive about it, and I appreciate that's probably quite unfair. But yeah, you're right. We create some chances, but for a team of our stature, of our size, of the wealth that we spent, of the attacking quality that we've got on the pitch, I think we should be creating more. I don't think that in those games we were necessarily even creating a great deal more than your standard team. I don't think that we were showcasing the wealth of options and quality that we really should have done. And maybe it's a case of we're overestimating the quality we have, or ultimately I think a lot of it comes down to what we're saying in the summer, that the recruitment just hasn't been there in the right places. We haven't bought in the places that we need to. Lukaku really would have benefited from someone who's able to put the ball in, someone who's able to cross the ball, someone who's able to get down the wing and put a good ball in for him to attack. And so we haven't seen the best of Lukaku. And ultimately, on the left side, we're playing, 2 want to be number 9s who can do very well there, but it's not their natural position. It's not where they necessarily want to be playing. And also, particularly Rashford is at an age where he's going to bring inconsistent performances. And on the other side, his recruitment of Mkhitaryan just hasn't paid off. I don't think that it was necessarily a bad signing. It just hasn't worked out. And, instead he's playing Matt, who's a tidy player and I like him, but he is risk averse. He's not someone who's going to create a huge deal these days. He's not someone who's going to bring the pace that we necessarily need when the other side isn't firing. So as a result, I just think that in those areas, we don't necessarily, have the quality or the consistency in quality that we perhaps should have for the money that we spent.
Yeah, but then that comes down to the manager then, doesn't it? I mean, we have spent a lot of money. We've got a damn good squad. I mean, yeah, it only has to come down to the manager, really.
I think it's probably worth talking about the quotes and what he's been saying on the spending, right?
I've actually been pretty annoyed by some of the things Jose's been saying in the past few weeks. I mean, he's been talking about how much money he's spent, obviously. I mean, and he came out saying, I've spent 300 million. And I actually, we said this the same on the last podcast. I actually brought out the stats that Pep's bought in about 12 players at a cost of around 400 million, whereas we've bought in about 7 at a cost of about 300. So yeah, fair enough. But he's bringing out these comments after we've drawn with Burnley, whose whole squad don't even cost the price of one Paul Pogba. So I did think it was a bit bizarre time for him to start bringing out stats about how much money he's spent and whatever. I mean, I understand what he's saying, but we're just drawn with Burnley, who probably have the cheapest squad in the whole league or something. But no, we've spent enough money to be definitely looking to be clear in second, which we should be. But after this kind of period now, we're slipping down into third, back in that top 4 fight. You can't really be complaining with what he's had so far.
No.
I agree, but I've spoke a lot. So do you guys have something to say, or if not, I will?
I've always been obviously a big supporter of Mourinho in his United career so far. I thought we did well last year with cup competitions, even though I think the performances, almost going out on various stages throughout the Europa League against very mediocre opposition, playing very defensive. I thought he quite often reduces our ability rather than makes the most out of it. I think he is clearly unhappy with his squad, and I don't necessarily see the issues that he sees. I don't think. I think he underrates a few players and has damaged them in that sense. Like your Luke Shaw's and even some of the attacking talent, Martial and Rashford, although he has given them chances. Rashford's played in 22 games this year, scored 9 goals, something like 6 or 7 assists. Martial has much the same, and Lingard obviously is more productive than we've ever seen them. So those are all positives when you look at it that way. But also when you look at it in terms of 90 minutes across the pitch, I just think we're so risk averse, and I just think he sets us up negatively, and that's due to him not feeling like he has the players. But then I wonder, what players does he want? Who could he get that would make us suddenly start playing this great football? And I just think it's not there at the moment. I think perhaps slightly, I don't think he's damaged goods anymore. I think there's still a very good manager in there, but he is looking every bit the checkbook manager at the moment, and he doesn't help by these comments, which I think are petulant and ill-aimed, as Nick says. I think he chooses the wrong times, and people say he deflects from his players and things like that, but I don't think so. I think it's negative. I think a lot of the sort of the dirge we've been seeing at the moment comes from Mourinho, and I'm a big Mourinho fan, so it's quite it's been a hard Christmas period because I'm really coming to dislike watching the team, put it that way. It's really difficult sometimes to watch United at the moment because you can just see so much potential, so much quality, and there's other teams with big flaws in the league. Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, huge flaws, but you can't watch a Liverpool match and watch a Liverpool attack and not be entertained or not be pleased with what you're seeing. Now obviously you're going to watch
Liverpool again.
You're going to watch the calamity at the other end. City the same. Even Chelsea seem to have sort of be coming into their way of playing, and I just think by this time in both this season and also his overall United tenure, it still looks like we do not have a clue about how we want to play it, and that is my big issue.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, sorry, if I could just quickly, well, probably not quickly, but touch on some points. So in terms of deflecting off the players, this talk about the money spent kind of directly undermines the players and the quality he's got. And I think that I definitely feel that that's been transcending into the players and their confidence. And just the way that he sets up in some of these games, setting up incredibly negatively against the likes of City, fair enough, but even the likes of Liverpool, who were in such a poor patch at the start of the season, and he's kind of saying to the players, look, I don't trust that we've got what it takes to go at them. I feel like our best chance.
Sorry to jump in on that point, Alex. See that setting up negatively. See, never mind Liverpool, City and all that. That's a totally different kettle of fish, top 6. See Burnley, West Brom, Leicester, whatever. We do this thing where as soon as they have the ball, our whole team drops into our own half. It's a complete half-court press, and we give them all the time and all the space in the world. And people like to say it's Mourinho wanting teams to step out and then you catch them on the break. We don't catch anyone on the break, hardly ever anymore. It just doesn't happen because we don't move the ball nearly quick enough. So we give teams so much time, so much space to grow into the game. We never press the ball. We never PM teams in anymore. And then we'll keep the ball, we'll force it out wide. One of our fullbacks will chuck in a cross at largely no one or something that Lukaku can't do anything with. They'll get it back. And the other teams keep possession for 5-10 minutes. That shouldn't really happen at United. Our possession should be dominant. We should be recycling the ball and penning them in, but doing so with quick passing and 1-2s and little triangles. And it's just non-existent. We give far too much respect to the opposition. And I have no idea why, because most of the time it ends up like they look like they can play football better than us, which I just cannot understand why we don't. the kilometres travelled per player, we are chronically low in the stats, chronically low, because we just sit back. It's like no one ever wants to make a tackle or force the issue. In the same way, on possession, no one wants to drive the ball except Martial, sometimes when he can be bothered, really. It's just, for me, it's totally wrong for the way we should be playing.
I don't think that's all Mourinho, though. The ball gets into the final third, it'll be pinged into someone like Herrera, and he'll just send it straight back to where it came from. There's no turning to goal, nothing.
Sure, so you're right, and I think the stats back that up. So you mentioned earlier that you don't necessarily agree that we're not creating chances, but I think for shots we're sixth. All the other top six are ahead of us, and I think between us and fifth there's a good 15%. Which may only be a couple of shots a game, but that can make a big difference. We're sixth for shots on target, and we're seventh for shots in the box. We are creating less chances than the other teams. And also, in terms of you saying that it's the players on the pitch, one, as manager, it's his job to inject the confidence and inject the urgency and intensity in our players when they're attacking, but also his throwing of players under the bus at times recently. Was it the Leicester game where we had a couple of chances and we really probably should have won that game and scored 3 or 4 goals?
We should have won that game.
After the game, he's talking about the silly mistakes, about childish errors, about not taking chances, and he was saying how some players keep that for their career. They act like children and make childish mistakes for their whole playing career, and that throwing under the bus and those comments doesn't then necessarily translate in players thinking, right, I'm going to play on instinct. I'm going to carry the ball forward. I'm going to take a shot when I want to. I'm going to do whatever comes naturally. They're going to be thinking, right, hold on, what should I be doing here? What if I try and take a shot? If I go around the keeper? If I do this? If I do that? Is the manager going to moan at me? Is he going to have a go? Is he going to complain? And even if they end up doing it, they've already hesitated. They're not doing it with full confidence. They're not on instinct. And ultimately, there's just less chance of them converting that chance.
I had the chance to speak with Ashley Young and to tell him the way the team had to be in position because of Smalling difficulty. But I think lack of maturity, because I cannot stop the game and to give a team talk for the last 2 minutes. The players inside, they have immediately to adapt and to read the game, which they didn't. So we had childish decisions in front of goal. Bad decisions, because it was not just about the goals we missed. It was not about the dribbling and hit the bar or the post in this case. It was not just about missing chances with an open goal. It was also about decisions, easy decisions to make in easy transitions to counter-attack.
I think, in fairness, the Leicester game, Lingard rounds the keeper and hits the post. Martial misses a very, very simple one-on-one. Rashford has umpteen chances when we're breaking 3 against 2, 2 against 2, and then we waste it, or Matic passes it backwards when Lukaku's screaming for it wide right. That was actually a game in which Lukaku created so much for his teammates, like was playing through balls to everybody, was looking really good, his hold-up play. He was screaming for it to get it back, and we just were so wasteful. We didn't know what to do. As soon as their man got sent off, you just knew they were going to get an equaliser, because we just completely capitulated in terms of how you should play against 10 men. Absolute disaster. So, to be fair, and I know I've just criticised Mourinho quite heavily, and I'm very unsure now about how he'll take us forward and how we'll go that way. But if ever there was a game to have a dig at your players, the Leicester game was it. And I don't mind doing that publicly necessarily if it's, sharp and to the point. And I would appreciate that surely he's having the same conversations, in the dressing room. It's not as if the players will be surprised by what they hear in terms of that. I don't think that's the case where they're like, oh, well, why is he having a dig at me? Because I'm quite sure he would have went into the dressing room and let them know exactly how poor he thought it was before going and talking to the media that way, or certainly after, or whatever, when they do the debrief. But I think it's sort of a 50-50 in that I think since Fergie we have had a lot of bad recruitment, and we've also had a lot of bad attitude in the club, I think, both in terms of literally bad attitudes like Di Maria and that kind of thing, but also in terms of just players perhaps not understanding what's expected or what's required at a top 4 club or at United, or the team that wants to challenge for major honours, in terms of work ethic, in terms of professionalism, in terms of not having made it just because you're at United, and we've seen that with Memphis, didn't work out, Di Maria, lots of young players, lots of quality that have come in, and it just hasn't happened. Falcao injured, whatever, and I think that's a big issue as well in terms of someone does need to call out some of our players, I think, because the form seems to vary so wildly. Like, you never saw it under Ferguson, not really to this extent, and certainly players were seemed to be kept on a much finer edge and really gotten rid of before they became problems and things like that. And I think at the moment, there's just so much variance in what you get. Mkhitaryan, good for 2 months, awful for 3 months. Herrera, good for a year, awful for a year. Fellaini is just actually pretty solid. I don't know why I picked him, but even now we're seeing a resurgence of Luke Shaw, who we haven't seen for 2 years. It's just like, why is this all taking so long to get nailed down? Either get rid of them and bring a player in, or trust that player, and play them. And we just seem to go 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards, and there's just no. Even when you think we're putting together a run, or that we're sitting second and we're looking pretty good, then this just horrible period just comes, and really we look right back in the mire again.
Mm.
Yeah, that's the most disappointing thing of this period, that we really could be clear in second, and maybe looking to then focus on getting back into the cups and that kind of thing. But now we're dragged back into the race for top 4. So many talking points and everything from all these last few matches. But Ed, was there any particular kind of big, your main negative and your main positive from this Christmas period?
Well, the Leicester equaliser it still pisses me off now. I just don't understand why Smalling's still in that position. Why? It's just simple.
It's kind of what I was just saying about Mourinho's comments on the plays. Like he said after the game, it was a silly decision to stay on the pitch. I still think that Mourinho could have got up and stepped in there, but I understand him trusting the players to make the decision for themselves. But this is also the same manager who not too long ago was complaining about Luke Shaw limping off the field, and said something like, for him to be limping off the field and leaving me with 10 men, I hope it was a serious injury. And it did turn out to be. But this is a manager who openly, made that assumption about a player and put that on a player and question their commitment to the team. So I can then understand why Smalling, as absolutely stupid and ridiculous as it was, by the way, and I'm not saying otherwise, did stay on the pitch and maybe didn't go and sit up on the halfway line or didn't force his way to right back. I think the blame definitely lies with him. It lies with the other players for there being a lack of leadership and responsibility and accountability for anyone else stepping up. But also, maybe if Mourinho hadn't been so harsh previously, or if Mourinho had just got up and shouted in the few minutes early where we were constantly, where we saw this problem manifesting, then it wouldn't have happened. It was just a catalogue of errors, and the amount of people who could have made a difference there was unbelievable. It was one of the most ridiculous goals that we've ever conceded. Absolutely shoddy.
You just saw it coming, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's just obvious.
It couldn't have been scripted. It was just unbelievable. Gary Neville's probably spent about 6 minutes talking about it.
Yeah.
But Mourinho did have a chance to influence that. I mean, a lot of blame has gone on to the players, but Smalling goes down. He comes off the pitch. And he stood in front of our subs bench. Mourinho has every chance there to decide what happens at that point, but he then puts all the blame on the players after it.
Smalling must have got injured before the end of the 90, didn't he?
Yeah,
he did. Yeah, he was on the pitch for 6-7 minutes whilst injured.
Yeah, definitely. And there was Phil Jones did try and do a bit of reorganisation. Yeah. He did try and take some kind of control, but there's this kind of, I don't know, I'm not too sure what happened, but some people are saying that he's asked Herrera to drop in at right back and Herrera didn't want to, and he said Mkhitaryan should drop in. It's not clear what exactly has happened there. Unless anybody's had any lip reading or something going on out there and knows what was said.
The other argument is, as much as I understand sort of retreating and being quite defensive when the other team was searching for a goal, they had 10 men.
Yeah,
I don't understand why we didn't have the ball, up their end of the pitch or doing something.
Just pass the ball to a teammate.
Well, Mourinho made another negative substitution, didn't he? I think when he brings in Herrera when we're pushing and we could have easily killed off this game, and instead he chooses to sit back even though it's against 10 men and gives all the impetus to them to have a go at us for the last few minutes.
Yeah, it was fairly devastating. It's been very doom and gloom yet, and Alex really seems to have the knives out for Mourinho. And I'll admit it is a big wobble, and it makes me very concerned. And certainly We just can't always be waiting for the next transfer window. That's not.
No.
That's not. That's no good. That just is stopgap, and it's short term, and it's not. I don't think what anyone wants. But there has been positives as well in this.
Yeah.
Month or two of absolutely dire football.
What was your big positive? Yeah.
I mean, it has to be Lingard. It has to be Lingard. I mean, it's just such a great feeling, to see someone much maligned. It's almost like Fellaini. Lingard cops a lot of hate. We've flipped and flopped him on the podcast. Stubbzilla, Mark used to be a massive, massive fan of his, but he loves every youth player, so it sort of felt a bit, like he just loves every youth player. So it wasn't really that special. Imran was quite categorical and saying he wasn't good enough. And I've, there's been many games where we've come and done a podcast and I said, well, he may as well not have been on the pitch. But I think that's fair. There were times when he was, just running around, and a lot of times you have to, you would always say he's so neat and tidy, he finds space really well, but if other people aren't playing well, he's not going to do it on his own. And the big difference this Christmas period is he is just taking the ball himself. He looks so fleet of foot, he looks like he has such a great touch in him, so much composure in around the box just to make a wee turn or to beat a man. He's driving past people, and you're not really noticing his lack of physicality because he just seems so nippy now, and on top of that, his passing is so crisp, he's playing through balls, and his finishing, we used to, every preseason, used to bang about 6 goals in. You think, boy, this could finish, he could finish. And then it got into the actual senior team, and it seemed to desert him for about 2 years since he's obviously made his sort of debut in the squad. But it seems to be that he's really now settled, and that he's kind of got a bit of confidence, that he's maybe just hit that age where he's just matured enough to realise that, it doesn't have to be super complicated, and it's just, you can just let it flow naturally. That's what it looks like to me. Someone who's just realised that actually, football's not that complicated and you just need to do the basics, which he is doing tremendously well. And he's, it's infectious because I think he does such a great job in freeing up space for other players and bringing them in as well, so it's really pleasing to see. Is he our number 10, nailed on? I don't know, but you wouldn't. Well, you say no, but let's just see where this goes. At the end of the day, why does everyone need to rush to make a final judgment? Rashford isn't good enough. Martial won't make it here. He's not a left winger. Lingard isn't good enough to be a number 10 for a Premier League winning squad. Why? Who knows? Let's just watch and find out. He's been brilliant.
My thoughts on Lingard are that his worst is a water carrier, and a United squad has always had water carriers. Fletcher was, Park was, and he does a job in the team, and I think he'll continue to do a job in the team.
He is doing more than just a job at the moment, though, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely.
Water carriers don't get 7 goals in 9 games.
I think that's probably been a fair comment of him in the past, and maybe it will be again. But in this fantastic purple patch he's having at the moment, I don't think that you could label that. He's been genuine. No. He's been a genuine.
I think what I'm trying to say is he deserves his place.
He's been a genuine leader by example in terms of he's taking games by the scruff of the neck, and he's being the winner for us. He's killing games for us, and he's getting the all important goals, and for the most part making the right decisions and doing the right things. And he's always had the intelligence and fantastic movement, but he never had the right decision making or productivity at the end. But he's finally seemed to nail that down. So yeah, if he can continue, I agree with Coleman. It might not be likely, but ultimately, we need players of his loyalty. We need players of his ability to come in and do a job, even if they're not starting every single game. And we need a player who we can count on in the important games and to do a job. And if he can also carry on with these goals and assists, then who knows what could happen.
Yeah, I mean, if we look back and say, what were the other positives from this period? We have had Lindelof coming into a bit of form after being very poor earlier in the season. He's actually...
Not a right back though, is he?
Well, he's done all right there defensively. Yeah. You can see that, attacking-wise, he's obviously not offering anything like what Valencia gives us, or even Young, when he comes in on that side. But yeah, defensively, he's done fine there. And yeah, it's just nice at least to see him start having a bit of a run of form there, and that you can say, you can at least rely on him as a squad player at the very least. Luke Shaw as well, like we say, back from the dead, has had a couple of good shots in there.
I think Shaw's done really well since he came back.
Yeah, no.
He's done really well.
I think he's been quite suspect defensively.
Well, I was going to say that. Attacking-wise, he's probably been better than defensive-wise.
And I don't mean to sound harsh, but I think everyone wants to see him do well, so people are quite quick to see the positives and aren't quite as balanced, I think, with the negatives.
You're probably right.
I think in every game he's made some pretty glaring defensive errors, but I still think he's our best left-back. And I know that's quite harsh on Ashley Young because he's been brilliant. But I'd rather put the time into Shaw, and I do think going forward he gives you something that no other fullback can give you. Even the last few games, the little 1-2s from Martial, how many times have we seen him actually get genuinely in behind and flash one across? And thankfully none of our strikers have any kind of attacking instinct, otherwise we would have had a couple of assists. But thankfully none of them were interested in getting in the 6-yard box or making it run across the near post for Shaw. But he's still doing the right things, and he does get in behind. He can't really cross a ball, which is a bit of a shame, but he does love to get to the byline, which I think is really nice to see and something we don't get that often. But I do still think he's a bit of a donkey defensive-wise, to be honest. And I think that'll always be Mourinho's big issue with him, where a lot of Pep might gloss over that because of what he gives you going forward and find other ways for the team to cover that kind of deficiency. But Mourinho will just see, I think, the mistakes, and I fear that'll be, as soon as players get fit again, he'll be benched again.
Yeah, I just don't see why people need to be so quick in labelling players as maybe a donkey in defence when and Martial being not good enough and Rashford being inconsistent. Maybe let's just see, Colm. Let's just see what happens. Let's watch this space.
Oh, here, I'm happy. I would start him every game at left back for the rest of the year, because what are you getting from Ashley Young? You're getting a great whipped in cross, but what's he doing next year and the year after that? Like, Ashley Young is not our left back. And I love Ashley Young to bits, and I think he's been brilliant this season. And I also even think he's better on the right, and I think he could really challenge Valencia. But you need to be long term, and I think that's a big issue as well. Where just everything's in the short term. Who's going to perform there now? As opposed to who's going to be great for 3 or 4 years. Rashford's copping a bit of heat at the moment because he hasn't been great the last few weeks, and that's true. And he got a run out at number 9 when Lukaku went off the game before Everton there, with a head injury, and he was quite poor. He didn't really get into it at all, and people are just so quick, to say this boy won't make it. He's mid-table. He's a mid-table. He's gone from a championship player to a mid-table centre forward. I just can't abide that in any way, shape, or form. No. Harry Kane had not made a Premier League start for Tottenham at Rashford's age currently. Rashford has 28 goals for Manchester United and 9 already this season, as well as 6 or 7 assists. And how people are already, writing him off. You don't know what a footballer's going to be like until they're 22 or 23, and that doesn't mean we should persist with him. He shouldn't start every game up until that age when we can make a decision on him. But at the moment, yes, as you mentioned earlier, Alex, he does give you some inconsistency. For me, he also shows you, and this goes for Martial just the same, and the like of Lingard and Luke Shaw, they show you more than enough to show that there's a reason why they're at Manchester United, and that should be, as you say, we should see. We should just wait and see.
We've said all this last season about Rashford. He's been there before and he's come out of it, so I don't see why people are so quick to jump on a bandwagon of hate. It's just tiresome, really tiresome.
Yeah, and Rashford started the season really well. He's just played way too many games for somebody that young. Like you said, he did come in centre forward when Lukaku went off injured against Southampton, which I think in this period of games was actually our worst performance. Out of all these matches was that Southampton 0-0 when we really did create very little and just looked tired and I don't know, it was that kind of end of Christmas period where you do get these kind of games, and Southampton as well had been on a pretty terrible run of form. We still managed to coming out 0-0 with that. That was the most disappointing performance for me. Although we did, of course, have a loss to Bristol in the middle of all this that we haven't mentioned at all yet. Crashed out of the whatever Milk Cup, Carling Cup, Rombelos, whatever the hell it is. I personally am not too bothered. It sounds bad and spoiled and whatever, but I even said before the game that, look, we don't really need this competition. We won it already last year. I'd prefer that we get some time off for our players. I was actually thought Mourinho played way too strong a team in this game and should have given players a rest. He talks about players not getting a rest and everybody's had too many matches, and then you look at the kind of teams that City and Arsenal put out and they were really like much more reserved teams, whereas he's put out a very strong team. So he's only got himself to blame if he thinks players have played too many minutes. Were any of you upset for going out of that cup or what?
Only insofar as I think as you say, when you put out that team, I think it's unacceptable to lose, put it that way. I don't think the players took it too seriously. We certainly had a bad day at the office. Bristol were right up with plenty of effort, but to get beat 2-1 by Bristol City, it just shouldn't be happening with that kind of squad. Why McTominay, Tuanzebe, Gomez didn't play, I will never know, because these players will go elsewhere if they don't get minutes.
McTominay, he did play that.
McTominay did, yeah. So, but the others, why? Like Tuanzebe got 1 minute there the other day. Why have we not seen him more over the Christmas period? I just don't understand it. I think when you put out that strong a team and then you get beaten, I think it is a blessing in disguise, but it's still disappointing. And I think it also has contributed to the bad run. I think a win's a win regardless. It keeps the winning mentality going. It keeps the momentum up. It gives you something to talk about. A loss is very much different. And whilst our main issue has been draws, I can't imagine that loss particularly helped in terms of our team morale or our momentum. And I just think, although we probably don't want to be in the competition, as you say, Nick, once you put out that strong team, but with the amount of games we have and how physically tired we look, the fact that we don't have to play what would probably only be 2 or 3 more games anyway, it does seem like a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't like to criticise these competitions and talk about these cups as minor things, but it's because we've won them in the past couple of years. We've had 2 good Wembley trips, one with the FA Cup under Van Gaal, which I really, really did want to win at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, this season, I would much prefer that we just focus on that league, make sure we get back in that top 4, which is by no way guaranteed the way we've been going. And yeah, look, get ready for Europe coming back in February. We're not got the best squad maybe, but you never know with the way the draw goes. And Mourinho, he has shown himself to be a good cup manager. So yeah, I'd even be happy, a semi-final or something like that. I'd be very content with. But yeah,
I mean, maybe if we'd spent another 100 million, we could have gone out on all fronts and gone for the League Cup as well. But I think when there are teams who are spending 400 million compared to our 300 million, then we should probably step back a little bit and accept that we're not going to win absolutely everything.
Yeah, like I said, we won it last year as well. Anyway,
Yeah.
No need to.
I guess just that point earlier just keeps coming back to me on Mourinho's comments on the money, and I just think, why even bother then? Like, why even bother if it's purely based on they've spent so much money and bought so many players that we've got no chance? Then why is he even doing it? Why is he getting out of bed in the morning? It just doesn't make sense to me. You've obviously, whether true or not, and I think it's probably somewhat a fair point, but I think we're the least
I don't think it is a fair point.
Able to with the least team able to complain about it.
We're literally the second highest in spend, so we can't, we can't use that. You can't just say, as Nick rightly pointed out, it's not City who are beating us every week or who are drawn against every week. So the argument falls away straight away. I don't think it's anything he's given proper thought. I don't think he's saying it. Yes, he's saying it seriously, but as I said before, it's petulance and it's whinging for the sake of whinging. It's deflecting from the actual issue, which is that his team is playing like crap, and it's just...
Yeah, he's saying it for 2 reasons. Like you say, it's deflection, and it's also the transfer window is opening. Yeah. He's sending a message to Woodward, the Glazers, saying, I want some more money, I want some more players. So yeah, that's why he's doing it. It's the timing,
I think part of it is less deflection and more excuses, and some of his own ego, saying that if he was able to spend that money, he would win the title, and that would be it, and that the money is the only difference between him and what Guardiola is doing. But I do think you're right, that I do think there's a message there as well, not just in terms of the money, but he did make a point around our money being spread more thinly, or I guess you could say opposite, not being spread thinly enough, in that we are focusing on the marketability of players and therefore spending large sums on players. And I guess I always thought that Mourinho was keen to have a few big star players come in, but that kind of sounded like he was saying that actually maybe the club aren't always interested in what's the best fit for us, but what player are we able to benefit from it in other ways.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Woodward transfer legacy might well bear out that point. I would think there was a good article, I think, in the Telegraph by, might have been Ducker, which was sort of alluding to that point, that Woodward, promised Klopp Disneyland, and that's very in keeping with his, corporate image for Manchester United and what we gain from players. And it isn't necessarily, the pitch that is at the forefront of everyone's mind, which just would not have happened under Ferguson. I mean, I know Ferguson had the opposite sort of issue where he was so skinflint for periods due to no, as he called it, value in the market, which is kind of the opposite end of the same problem.
Right.
But what he wouldn't have had was players being signed for, shirt sales, marketability, for the global brand and stuff like that, which, well, we all thought it was just to put United back on the map, because obviously once Fergie left and we dipped down to the sort of mid-table mediocrity for a season and stuff like that we had to kind of make a statement in the transfer market. And obviously we've done that, and I would say more often than not it hasn't worked. as we intended. Certainly Di Maria, Falcao, players like that. But the only issue I have is that Mourinho is just, where's the positivity? Where's the oomph?
Yeah.
Where's the
There's a lack of
motivation?
charisma
Where's
about
the
him.
charisma exactly? Where's the fun? Where's the jokes?
He's no longer the special one, is he? He's the
He's
fucking
so grumpy
one.
all the time.
I think that's one of my biggest problems with him. Like I still actually think he's the best man we could have at the moment. I don't think there's anywhere near as good out there available. For all my issues with him, I still think that he's the best man for the job. But it would help if he was just a little bit more positive, a little bit more upbeat. If I felt like he felt that he could do it, if he wasn't flirting with PSG every other week, if he wasn't moaning about spend.
Or, slagging off Paul Scholes, do you know what I mean? Like, fair enough.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, Paul Scholes' comments are often, he isn't the best pundit. Sometimes he is very simplistic and he does, slag off players a wee bit. But see what any pundit says should just be water off a manager's back. What other manager gets dragged into kind of an e-fight with, a pundit? Like, it's just so unnecessary. I'd like them to see him, just concentrate on us and just do us and build a bit of a siege mentality and bang on about how United are a big club and just be positive. And, fair enough if he needs to tell off the players, then tell off the players. But it seems to be it's the refs. It's the we should have had this penalty, and yes, we should have had a penalty for a handball. We should have had this. We should have had that. We also had 87 other minutes in the match where we could have dominated them if we played a bit better football. So it's just, for me, it just takes away from it all,
But I think Scholes will be in the history like a phenomenal player, not as a pundit. So I prefer to look at him as a phenomenal player that gave so much to the club that I am proud to represent and to give my humble contribution every day. Every day I try to do my best. If Paul one day decides to be a manager, I wish that he can be 25% as successful as myself, because 25%, so 50% is 12.5 silverware, 25% is around 6. If he's 25%, you'll be quite happy. But in my mind, Paul Scholes, phenomenal player, one of the best players I have ever seen playing in midfield, and he gave so much to my club that I only can thank him for that, because the prestige of this club is based on people like him, so successful here.
Yeah, one of the other comments actually that he was talking about how Lukaku needed a rest, but he couldn't give him one because he didn't have any other options, and I found that slightly bizarre because
mad, absolutely mad. Play 4-4-2, stick Rashford and Martial up there.
Rashford's been begging to have some games up front this season.
Yeah. But that's it. It comes down to that trust that I said earlier, Nick. He doesn't trust certain players in certain positions, or he only trusts them in certain areas. And it's just, to me, that lessens them as opposed to, it's not safe. I actually think it reduces their overall contribution, because you need to let players, and sometimes it's good just to play. That was the one thing we did do against Everton, was we played a bit of a weird formation. We played, without a really, out and out number 9,
Yeah, it was almost a strikerless formation.
And that caused Everton issues because it was a different look and they weren't prepared for that, I'm sure. And Lingard looked really good. Martial, I thought, struggled in the first half, looked good in the second half. And great, something a bit different. But, you don't have to stick to the same thing every week with the same 11 players, or the same players that fit in certain positions that you want to play them in,
But you're right, and if you're a budding number 9 striker and you're doing your best and working hard on the wing every week, because that's where the manager wants to play you, and you're a professional and you want to prove yourself and prove that you can take on a task and learn a position, and you do that, and you do that relatively well, I would say, considering age and quality and experience in that position, and then he still doesn't trust you in the position that you want to play in when the only player there available is in major need of a rest, then what's the real motivation? I know that these are professional players and they're going to be trying hard, but they're more than just that. It's not a switch that they can turn on and off. You need to keep these players going and motivated. And if he doesn't trust them, it's hard for me to feel that they can necessarily reciprocate in terms of the quality that they're showing on the pitch.
Yeah. I think he wants to play Lukaku into form as well. I think that's part of it. I think, Lukaku does need a rest, but Lukaku also needs goals, and he gets them by being on the pitch. I think dropping him maybe drop him for tiredness. Don't drop him because he's been crap. Because I think.
But Bristol City, you could have dropped him, right? Games like that,
Yeah. No, I'm not saying there weren't games to rest him. I'm just saying Lukaku's in a tricky period in his United career. He started so well and got the goals, and he already has a tally that isn't awful for this stage of the season, both in goals and assists, but it's the overall performances and the kind of lack of involvement in most of our games, as well as the fluffing of recent chances and the absolute diabolical defending from set pieces in his own box. But he's in a poor patch at the moment, and he needs to come through that, and you don't get that by your manager necessarily just dropping you. You probably are more likely to get that by your manager saying, no, he's the boy, he's going to start. Fair enough, say he's tired, great, whatever. That's better than saying he's been woeful, So I do sort of understand that he's maybe protecting Lukaku a bit.
But I don't actually think that Lukaku has been that poor. He scored the winner against Bournemouth. He scored a goal against West Brom. As we said before, he should have had 2 or 3 assists against Leicester, putting in some great balls where just it was, the players weren't finishing them off. And, then all right, he was thrown in with Zlatan that didn't quite work. And then after that match, he got injured. So he actually had a pretty decent run of form, but the press had really been getting on his back, almost creating this different story of him being way, absolutely useless. And I'm getting like pictures from my friends, with Mourinho rooting around in a bin saying, where's that Lukaku receipt? And I'm saying, listen, he's actually done pretty well this season. If somebody had said at the start of the season he's going to have scored this many goals, this many assists by Christmas, we would have been pretty happy by it. I think one thing was he actually started the season on fire, so it kind of like dropped off a bit. So people start talking about. But you look at other players who came in the summer, Lacazette, Morata. He's done as well as any of they have. So I don't know why all of a sudden people are talking about Lukaku as if he's been a failed signing or something. The one thing I would say is that he has just played way too many minutes, and that's Mourinho's fault. And he did exactly the same thing with Pogba last season. Kept playing him and playing him and playing him when he was just clearly knackered and needed a rest. And like I say, Com, I think it's part of it is what you say, that he kind of doesn't want to drop them when people are saying you're playing badly because he thinks it's going to affect them mentally. So he keeps playing them, but in the end he's like running them into the ground basically. So maybe this Lukaku injury, we didn't want it, but at least he's had a bit of a rest from it. I think it's not too serious and that he will actually be back for these next couple of matches.
I'd prefer he's out for a little bit longer. I think he's been tired for a good month now, and he just needs a rest. 1 or 2 games.
How much rest does he need?
I would hope a week or 2. Unless he's injured. Like I know he's got the head thing, but unless he's got a strain or something, I think tiredness will go with a proper week off, a full week off.
I mean, if we look at the games coming up now, I mean, Friday night it is, in case people didn't realise, we're against Derby. First time we're not being shown in the FA Cup for something like 50 matches. I don't actually understand. I don't understand why this game's on Friday night when it's not on television. I haven't quite understood that, but that's when it is taking place anyway. Derby riding high in the Championship at the moment, second place just behind Wolves. I did actually have a quick look at their squad, and they're full of kind of ex-Premier League players, basically. Names Tom Huddleston, Joe Ledley, Chris Martin, even Darren Bent still kicking around over there. And one of our ex-youth players actually as well, Tom Lawrence, has been scoring a few goals for them. So they're doing pretty well this season. I personally would not be that bothered if we lost this match, even though...
I think that's a bit mental, Nick.
What are we going for this season? We're out of the League Cup. If we go out the FA Cup as well, we know we're not going to win the league. And the Champions League is obviously a far shot because there's so many fantastic teams in there.
No, but I'll be happy if we consolidate second or third place and a semi-final in the Champions League. I'd be happy with that season.
I'm not worried about second place.
You think that's too much to expect?
I think I can understand, not too much to expect. I can understand exactly where you're coming from with the League Cup, and I appreciate League Cup and FA Cup. There's not a whole pile of difference, but to me, you want to win the FA Cup every year. If you're in it, you just stay in it. I don't think, I understand with the League Cup, but 3 cup competitions or 2 cup competitions in the league is not insurmountable. And I actually think, yes, we have played a lot of games, but to me, we need a lot of games to figure out what we actually want to do, which is the big issue still for me at the moment, is that we don't know how we want to play. So I want these games to kind of see players in different positions, or to, get a run of games where players can play together and build up a bit of form, because we still are in this sort of struggling, identity crisis of a team kind of position. And to me, the FA Cup, you have to want to be in the FA Cup. You can't just be dipping out of the FA Cup when you're already out of the League Cup,
It's funny, I mean, we spent the best part of an hour slagging off a lack of positivity in the team, and then we're saying, "Oh, we'll be happy to go out the FA Cup." I don't know. If you're in a trophy, you go for the trophy regardless.
Yeah, I can't buy into that. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I do understand that, but I kind of like if we hadn't won these the last 2 years, I would be in a totally different mindset on it. But because we've won these, had 2 good Wembley wins over there, I want to just I just think that we'll do with that rest.
Christ Almighty! I never knew that anyone could be spoiled by the post-Ferguson era. That they're bored of the same trophies.
I still think that we can have a good run at this Champions League. People are pretty much expecting quite little because they're saying, look, we're not as good as Barcelona,
I think
Real
Seville
Madrid,
does.
Paris Saint-Germain. But yeah, look, if I think on our day, Mourinho can work out how to beat any of these teams.
No, we can have both.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see any reason why we couldn't do both. We know that we're not going to win the league now, unfortunately. And sometimes you need those games for momentum and for the players to keep up their confidence and to have those games where, you know, the pressures of the league and the same teams and the same faces and something different to motivate them can be really handy. So I 100% think staying in the competition is very important, and winning it only adds to that winning mentality and hopefully carries us well into next season.
Well, exactly that. Nick, you're saying that, we've won those trophies recently. For me, it's important to follow up trophies with more trophies. Like, we won 2 trophies last year, and if we win another trophy, if we win, say, just the FA Cup this year to me and finish top 4, and you know, whatever kind of run the Champions League, that's a good season. That's fine. That's no issue, particularly given how long we spent at second and the obvious steps forward we've made, even though we're now hitting struggles. To me, that's a good season. If Liverpool win the FA Cup, to me, that's a big thing for them, you know, and then they kick on next year, and then players come in, and Klopp uses that. You know, he's always been good in the cups and stuff like that. So if we're not in it to win it, and we just give it, you know, fair enough, City are probably going to win the quadruple with Vincent Kompany. He'll be the happiest man in the world. But like, if we don't win it, someone else is going to win it, and it's going to galvanise, it's going to work for them. Whereas if we win 2 trophies last year, pick up a trophy here this year, kick on next year, then that's all the better for us. So nah, can't be treating that one. Although we'd probably play a strong team and we look crap, and Derby will win in the 94th minute anyway. Like, that's just the way football's going for us.
He will play a strong team because he does always in these cups. Like I say, you saw how he played against Bristol, and that was away. So at home to Derby, he will surely play a strong team.
We're at home.
We're at home. We're at home.
Yeah.
Unlucky you had to buy that ticket, did you? Nick?
Yeah, I did have to pay for that ticket. It's that bloody automatic cup scheme. But yeah, anyway, that's why I said that Friday night is actually a total killer for me. It's bizarre scheduling for that one, but that's the way it goes, I suppose. And we do actually have a full 10-day rest after that, as we don't play again till week on Monday against Stoke. So yeah, that's the first kind of period that, maybe he'll say, Lukaku will get at least a half or so against Derby, I think. And then he'll probably think, look, he's got a 10-day rest after that anyway. So that'll be the first time our players all get a bit of time to actually recuperate and everything. And then, this is your local team, right, Alex?
What, Stoke?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're absolutely dire at the minute. They've conceded more goals than any other team in the top 5 European leagues. Like, they are absolutely hemorrhaging goals. Like, it's unbelievable. And against the big teams, they're conceding 4+ and at a regular rate. So we'll probably draw 0-0 with them. But they're just unbelievably ridiculous. I think that Peter Coates, the Bet365 owner and the Stoke chairman, is usually being very sensible. He wants to give a manager time, and he waits till the end of the season before making decisions, and that's what he's always done before. But at the moment, the 3 teams who've been promoted are 11th, 12th, and 13th. You've got Crystal Palace, who are on a complete resurgence. West Ham are doing well under good old David Moyes, who we all know and love.
94th minute winner today.
Yeah, exactly. So Stoke are in real danger if they don't make a decision soon and swap managers. Then they're looking to be in trouble. And I'll be interested to see whether they could very well make a decision between now and that game, or ultimately they might wait for that game because it is United to make the decision after that. Is something that a lot of managers tend to do. They let the big game pass and then they bring someone in if they get battered. So hopefully they do that, and they don't get a new manager in and have the new manager honeymoon bounce. Because, like I say, at the moment they are just absolutely dreadful. They've got players like Shaqiri who have always been players who kind of play for the cameras and whatnot. who are just completely not playing for the manager. I think a lot of them have completely given up hope. They don't know what formation to play. They've been swapping from 3 and 4 at the back. And I would like to think that they are the perfect team that we'd like to face in the league next, because there aren't many teams who are worse at this present time.
I'd love to see them relegated. I'm enjoying Husey absolutely suffering, because I just think he's hard to like, very hard to like. It's and I'm normally very supportive ex United players, but he is just an absolute annoying man. So,
do we think they'll shake hands?
Yeah, there is a bit of ex-pass needle between Jose and Husey, right?
I don't think Husey will be there for it, to be honest. I think he's going this week. I think he's not.
It's just who they get. It's just who they get. There aren't many choices. I think Steve McLaren's been thrown around today quite a bit, and as much as he's been a good coach in the past, obviously he was with us for our treble-winning season and whatnot. He's not a very good manager, and he's shown that on countless occasions.
It is that time of year where, these clubs push the panic button because, the transfer window's coming up. So they think, look, if we're getting in a new manager, we should at least give him a window to bring in a couple of players. So obviously Everton have changed. Palace have got a new manager. Swansea just got a new guy last week, even though I've got no idea who he is or where he's come from. But I think he got sacked from Sheffield Wednesday one week and then got promoted to the Premier League the week after. So I don't know who's Stoke are going to find where from.
Isn't Pulis still available?
But Pulis took the Middlesbrough job, I think, or something.
Oh, right.
He's definitely taken a job in the Championship. I think Middlesbrough he's turned up at. He's already taken. I think they'd probably regret getting rid of Pulis. I think they tried to think they could push on a level.
No, because they were becoming stagnant under him.
They were, but look, they were solid.
No, they did have that season where they were fighting relegation, and he managed to pull it round. And then the next season, I think they finished 9th, and then Hughes did for 3 years in a row. So I can't remember exactly, but the fans weren't really with them. It had got to a point where you just have to start expecting more, and he's not the sort of manager to start showing ambition. He's not even the sort of manager to bring a little bit more creativity or anything, and he's very bold in his ways. So I do think they had to make a change, and I don't see why they regret it. They've had 3 9th places in a row. Hughes has done fine for the majority. It's just this season that it's capitulated, and ultimately we know that these days managers don't tend to last forever. So I think they've done fine with him, but now they're definitely struggling, and they need to make a change, else they may well find that it's too late.
And he's had quite a lot of money to spend, quite a lot back in. I think that's what you say. They wanted to move on a level, but they've not managed it, and in the end it backfires and they go in the opposite direction.
But it's a big game for us. For me, it's must win, because with Spurs after, which is obviously going to be a tricky game, or with Spurs at the end of January, maybe not straight after, but certainly with Spurs coming up after the break. And Chelsea are right there.
I think we've got Burnley in between that as well, actually.
Yeah, that's it. Stoke, Burnley, then Spurs, Huddersfield, Newcastle. So it's a run where really Spurs are the only game you'd look at and say, well, whatever happens, happens. The rest of them, for me, we have to get back to winning ways. I'm hoping that we have a new year kick on. Certainly, I think, Lingard and Martial, Pogba all linking up quite well. Very kind of positive second half there against Everton, and a lot of the boys seem to be really buoyed by that a wee bit. So I'm hoping we are coming out of it now, and that Lukaku comes back, bangs a few in, and then all will be well again. But that Spurs game could be a big game, because as much as I expect Chelsea and Liverpool to carry on dropping points just as we are, really it's been like coming back to earth, because I think a lot of people were getting carried away thinking it was us and City, when really it's City and then us and everyone else. And we're very much more in that bracket of Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs and Arsenal, more than in City's bracket. And I think that is only fair. Now, yes, we should have won probably all those draws, and then we wouldn't be in that bracket. But in reality, in terms of where our squad's at and the way we're playing, I think it's only fair that we are, where we are. We're getting what we paid for, really. And it's just a matter of keeping our heads above them, because it would be so sad to see second slip away, third, and then you're in a real dogfight, come the end of the year.
Yeah, the problem for me is there are 5 other teams now who are top 6. There are 5 big opponents, and there's kind of too many teams for Mourinho to continue with his negative self in those games and playing for a draw, because ultimately that's just too many points that you're losing now. Now that Spurs have stepped up and Liverpool have stepped up, and we're not necessarily going to beat Arsenal every game anymore, we can't be so reliant on getting those away draws and beating the other teams. So I think it's important that we do show some more ambition in that Spurs game, and I do think we're going to have to take points off these other top six to actually make sure that we do cement our place in a top 2 or 3.
Yeah, well, Chelsea at the end of February again, as well as the massive game, But you're right, we definitely the form against the top six has to take a drastic improvement, really, or else it'll be tricky enough.
Yeah, that's exactly my kind of point from earlier, talking about the Cup, just saying this season I really do just want to make sure we consolidate, get back second, hopefully even third. You'd kind of take it. But yeah, that's the main priority for me because, after having these up and down league finishes the last few years, we need to really just make sure that we're back solid Champions League and then, see what kind of run we have in that Cup. I think it's not till later on in February that Seville come back in. So we've got a bit of time. I mean, I think we were going to discuss the transfer window, but maybe we haven't got that much time yet, and there isn't actually that much to discuss so far. Let's see if we have any action in there in the coming weeks. Mourinho was asked in the last press conference, do you expect to bring in any players? And he said no, but he's obviously been pushing to get some cash in from the owners.
He was saying, I don't think so, and it's now changed to I don't know, I believe. So, there's
quite cryptic.
We'll see.
A slight change there.
I personally am not a big fan of all transfer muppetry and rumours and this and that. So, until something's announced, I'm not that arsed to look at. But I think, Colm, you're our big transfer muppet, right? So who are we buying?
Definitely a muppet.
I mean, I definitely keep an eye on it, but there's 4 or 5 names being bandied around. Certainly a winger seems to be a big one and kind of like a bruising centre midfielder, which I don't really think we need that much. But I think I would like to see us buy... It's tough because buying in January is not great, and really anyone decent we're going to get is going to be cup tied for the Champions League and stuff like that. But I just think we need an injection. I said it last year, but we need a right winger. We need a quality out-and-out wide winger, and you will see much more from Lukaku and just a better balance all around. So I think that's really, really important. But yeah, there's a few names being bandied about. There's also kind of talk that, a lot of talk of, well, look, we have to be a bit more realistic with our money, and whilst we have a lot of money, it's not just unlimited. We do have to balance the books. And that we maybe want to spend big rather than spending often and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if January goes by and we don't get anyone. But I do think it would give us a wee bit of a kick. And I think other teams probably will buy. So you don't want to just sit still when other people are improving. But I would hope to see someone brought in. But I don't. At the same time, we shouldn't just buy for buying's sake.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's see what we do. The other thing, actually, Colm, I'm surprised by, seeing as we've just played Everton and won there, I was expecting a bit of a Wayne Rooney monologue from you. Yeah, no mention of your favourite ever player, eh?
I thought he was okay in the first half, and do you know what? He's been doing well there lately. Obviously, he's their top goal scorer and all that. And Sam seems to be using him a bit better, and he doesn't play him every single week, which I think is probably the best way to get the best out of Rooney. He obviously had that performance in midfield where he scored a hat-trick of very Rooney-esque bumbling finishes, and obviously that great goal, which could be goal of the season as well. But yeah, I don't really ever want to see him score against United, to be honest.
I bought him for my fantasy team to make sure that he didn't score against us. So yeah, I did my bit.
I thought, the travelling fans were singing Rooney as much as the Everton fans were, and I think a lot of the Everton fans didn't think he should be subbed off for McCarthy, but McCarthy actually came on, did pretty well, gave them what we needed. So he was pretty. He had a few.
Did you see
passes.
that stuff between Rooney and Pogba in the tunnel before the match? I thought that was quite interesting.
I thought that was a bit weird.
It was a little bit weird, but I kind of liked it as well. It showed the difference in characters where, I don't know if all you guys saw it, but Pogba comes down and his usual shaking everybody's hands and, hello, everybody. And I think, he knows a couple of the French players, Schneiderlin or whatever on the other side. Goes, and then Rooney, though, is just pretending as if Pogba is not even there. He's just looking forward. He's not interested in shaking hands. He doesn't even want to say hello.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm ready for this game. And it was I just thought it was interesting, kind of just pre-match difference in mentality.
Like, do you remember Martial played that cross and then Pogba almost headed it in and they turned round and they were both like smiling, joking and laughing. And I was like, this was in the game. And I'm like, I get people sort of smiling or laughing because they've missed a chance. It's almost kind of ironic or whatever. But this was just like, oh yeah, good effort. We're playing, and I get that they're just different. But to me, it is serious and it is a bit of a war and it is battle, and you're not there to make friends or to have fun, and I get players want to express themselves and that's just their character and their thing.
But Pogba had a man of the match performance, and Rooney ultimately did nothing. I think it shows, if anything.
I mean, he didn't in the first half, put it that way.
How pointless, trying to dissect that moment before the game was, because if Rooney had a good game and Pogba had a terrible game, I imagine that we would have seen that clip played over and over again and saying, "Oh, look how seriously Rooney's taking it," whereas Pogba's clearly not focused enough. He's quite immature, but thankfully Pogba showed that actually he's just got a bit of personality, and he can be focused while still being quite relaxed.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. It's probably an antiquated sort of notion, and it is just how people are different. But to me, sometimes it still looks like people aren't quite. I'm sure players getting paid 150, 100, 200 grand a week, whatever, are taking it very seriously, playing in front of 75,000 people at Old Trafford. But sometimes you do feel like there's not that burning desire to put in every challenge, to get about the place, to really care and drive, in the team of the last 2-3 years, So I think there was maybe something in it, but.
All right, I think that probably about wraps us up for this week. Like I say, it's not been the best Christmas period for us, but yeah, we're still sat in a pretty good position in the league, and let's see if we can get back onto winning ways. And yeah, hopefully 2018 is going to be a good year for us. Like I said, we've been quite negative, but there's definitely signs of improvement from where we were at this time last year. So yeah, let's see. All good for 2018.
None of us are asking for him to be sacked or anything. This isn't Van Gaal.
No.
We're just a bit frustrated, but I'm 100%, like I said earlier, I think he's the right person for the job, and I'm confident that we will continue to make progress under him. So
it sounds like I'm the only one not worried about second. I don't think we're going to.
You think it's in the bag?
I wouldn't say it's in the bag. That's a bit too complacent, but I don't see us dropping enough points to lose it that other teams will pick up on.
Aren't we already third, or we're only second because Chelsea have got a game in hand?
Yeah, Chelsea playing tomorrow.
I just don't see Chelsea keeping up the momentum.
Yeah, no, let's see where we go. All right, we'll play that back to you later, Ed. Yeah, you'll either be Nostradamus or egg on your face.
I mean, they are playing Arsenal tomorrow, so.
Well, play it back when we win the league.
Exactly, guaranteed 3 points.
At the Emirates.
Exactly, guaranteed 3 points.
All right, and I think that's it then.
All right.
Good night, all.
Cheerio.
Good night.